Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome. Chapter 13, verse 21st. Prakriti is said to be the cause in the creation. Isn't it that page? Prakriti is said to be the cause in the creation of the physical and subtle bodies. Purusha is said to be the cause. Prakriti is said to be the cause in the creation of the physical and subtle body. Purusha is said to be the cause in the experience of pleasures and pains. You remember we just read it and that we began it. It's a very nice verse because it points to two kinds of karanas or causes. Yeah? As we know, Maya is said to be the cause of the universe. Of course, in association or using the substratum or the adhisthana of Purusha, which is consciousness. So Prakriti can bring about the universe, the creation, and it bring about the physical body and the subtle body of all jivas. So the physical inert universe and the living beings is all produced by Prakriti. Now, and then say consciousness, Purusha, is said to be the cause in the experience of pleasures and pains. Because in order to experience pleasure and pain, we need to have a reflected consciousness, reflected Purusha. We need to be a sentient being, experience, emotions, thoughts, and so on. So even though Prakriti creates the subtle body, the reflection is something else. Reflection is caused by original consciousness, which brings about reflected consciousness. It depends on the reflecting medium, but it fundamentally depends on consciousness with the aid of a reflecting medium. It calls reflect consciousness, which is the sentience experienced by all living creatures, including the ants and the chickens. And in the case of the human jiva, this Purusha reflect upon Prakriti is going to produce an effect, or in other words, a cause, which brings about the effect, which is human experience of pleasures and pains, which is a nice way to put what it is to be human. What it is to be human is just to experience emotions, and emotions are going to be pleasant and unpleasant. In duality, the opposite pairs are always present, and it's a projection of the human mind, but yet it is there. And there is a consensus, there is a collective mind that says, so in general, this brings pleasure and that brings pain. But in truth, we know that the objects of experience do not pursue or intrinsically on or have any pleasure or pain. Yeah? They don't have reality or value intrinsic to themselves. Yeah? Otherwise, we would, some people, you see somebody brings you pleasure and happiness. The same person to other person is going to bring concern and fear and rejection. So we know that the pleasures and pains of the objects in general are not contained in the object, but Purusha is going to be the cause that produce an effect. The effect is reflect consciousness in the human condition, projects all pair of opposites that somehow sustains this order from the psychological standpoint. Just imagine a child A child do not anticipate, a baby do not anticipate any pleasure and pain. You can have a child and put it in the most horrible and threatening and dangerous condition. Let's say put a child in the middle of the Mahabharata war, uh, in the field of Kurukshetra, if I remember the name, let's see, I forgot. So, and the child is going to be there crawling like that without any expectation in terms of pleasures and pain. Yeah? Why? Because the pleasure, the child, although has those predispositions and tendencies in the causal body, did not have it developed yet in its conscious mind. And it's totally innocent, therefore there is all this talk, be like a child in some biblical texts, Just be conscious without your tendencies manifest or your vasanas or your dispositions. So the cause is the experience of pleasure and pains once the human jivas are fully mature, so to speak. The ego crystallizes, the egos come into place. The first line is almost repetition of the previous verb. So everything in the creation is born of a Prakriti. Prakriti is matter and energies. It's inert, and our physical body and our subtle body, they are made out of inert energies, inert physical slash material and immaterial energies. If the fact carrion here means the body, technically carrion means byproduct, but here is more specific. It means that the physical body is an effect of Prakriti. Okay. Karana in this context means the mind. Karana means the mind or the subtle body in general. Yeah, the subtle body. The subtle body is causing the physical body, as we know. So it depends on the context, because even if we look in a broader context, uh, when we come to Purusha here, let's go by and by. The word karana is because in this context means the mind or the subtle body in general. Sukshma Sharira is called karana, the cause. Karyan, karana, kartatre means kartya means in the creation. Okay. It's the cause of the creation. The creation of the physical and the subtle bodies. Because it's all inert, it's all material. Not only the human jivas, but all jivas in the origination of them. Who is the contributor? Prakriti. Prakriti alone does a lot of work, highly active. So I'm explaining, Purusha is very lazy, does not do anything. And you see the Indian families, especially when it comes to stay home over the weekend, the man does not want to do anything. The original Purusha does not do anything likewise, therefore cooperate with your wives. There is another reading also on Karya, Karan, Katra. There is also meaning almost the same. In the creation of the world, which can be divided in Karana and Karya, cause and effect. For example, Pancha Bhutani is the cause, and all the Balticums, the elementals, are Karya. So it's saying that the subtle element is the cause which brings about all dimensions of the universe, all lokas, including this loka which we experience this physical incarnation. Yeah? So all of that comes from the very subtle elements, that which comes from the three energies. And then the elementals, which is further grossifications or densifications, are going to bring the physical realm, because we know that the elements have to grossify to become the physical earth, the physical water, the physical fire, and so on. But there are also other dimensions, okay, which are yet developments coming from the five subtle elements. Okay, if we have any doubt, we can talk. Or any contribution. Elements and elementals, or better, reading these I have chosen in the creation of the body mind Prakriti alone work. Okay. Of course. But Prakriti, Maya, Ishwara, we have to also open up or do a small diversion here, which is Maya Ishwara is not really a doer of anything. Because when we talk about now Maya Ishwara have to do a lot of work, we tend to picture like, okay, so those guys, they are the doers, you know? But no, they do not do. Okay? Because in order to be the doer, you have to own that kind of movement. You have to own that kind of phenomenon which happens organically and naturally. And then you say, I am the doer. Fundamentally, nobody is doing anything, including the human jivas. And that is the meaning of self-recognition, self-knowledge, is understanding that the ahamkara is going to try to own the entire realm or field of activities, inner activities, outer activities through the instruments of action and reception. So the Ahamkara is a center that somehow is going to try to appropriate itself, appropriate, now this is all my thoughts, my action, but this is the sense of doership. This is what needs to be dissolved in the process of Atma Vichara. And this is what is possible really. So the Ahamkara is going to lose more and more this power to appropriate or to own anything that belongs to Ishvara system, as I like to put, the gunas and everything. So not only in this realm in which the subtle elements manifest to become the elements as we experience, but in all other dimensions, all other lokas and so on. So Prakriti is doing a lot of things. Maheshwara, they don't do because the only doer, really, the only pseudo doership occurs in the mind of the jivas. Everything happens just naturally, spontaneously, organically, through this constant change, cause and effect, effects becoming cause, and everything is happening. And then we have the body mind of the living creatures responding to what comes from their environment. Everything is not really personal or personal, it's impersonal, it's just happening. It's just happening. And we need to become aware of this, that there are two things. One is the teaching that says the gunas are doing everything. Maya Prakriti is doing everything, which can be understood. And it's the ultimate truth. And then we have in the same sense, in another hand, in another sense, we need to own that the jiva was created to do things and needs to do things in accordance to Dharma. Okay? So who is doing everything? Is the jiva entity which is designed to respond to the prarabdha, to one's destiny or circumstance, and has to respond in a certain manner which is allowing this body mind to mature and grow and purify and refine. and not causing damage to the environment and the other beings, or it can just go against everything because the individual is fully governed by likes and dislikes. So the jiva, in that level, mitya level, jiva level is the doer, and it has to take responsibility for that apparent role as a doer. On a broader kind of perspective, Ishwara is doing everything, Maheshwara is doing everything, but Maheshwara does not have an ego that owns all of that. You understand? Does not have an ego. It's just a system. Everything is boom, boom, hitting everything else and producing change and actions and dynamism and so on. And then ultimately, we're going to say that not the jiva is not doing anything. Maya Ishwara are not doing anything. The only reality is the screen of consciousness on which this human move is being projected, appearing dynamically moving. It's exactly like the projector on the screen of the cinema. There's a small picture that goes very fast, giving us an illusion. You remember those moves at the beginning of last century that the pictures they would roll slowly. Also, but there are a lot of fragments that were a little broken. And then they start getting better in doing that, and then they create the same illusion that Maya creates upon us that things are moving and happening. Who is doing that? It's Maya. Okay. But when you really look at what is happening on the screen of the cinema, you see that the only reality is the screen, and the screen is not moving, it's not changing, it's not be effect, because it's not real, the projection. The only project is consciousness upon which Maya is projecting these sequences of thoughts, fundamental. There are thoughts that keep moving, moving, moving. The thoughts, and cognition gives the impression of continuity in which we develop the sense of the ahamkara, you know. But it's like Papaji used to say, it's just a bundle of thoughts that pa 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 pa. If you want to do deep meditation like a yogi, you're gonna see that fundamentally, once you empty your mind, you see there is a empty consciousness there without any thoughts or any superimpositions, and then the ego is not able to to sustain itself. That's the concept of yoga. You know, you destroy the ego, you discover the empty mind on which there are no thoughts, even I'm the doer. You know? I'm the thinker. Okay. If everything is done by Prakriti, Maya, Ishvara, where I'm going to find this blessed Purusha, this blessed consciousness? We know that Ishvara is a mixture of Prakriti and Purusha. Of these two, one principle we find pervading everywhere. Purusha, consciousness, is pervading everywhere. Because the Panchabhutas are Prakriti. The elements, the subtle elements are Prakriti. And the subtle elements, they are pervading everything. So that's why we say that, you know, Ishvara is well being the manager of the elements, the creator of the elements, and the manager. It somehow has this pure sattva gun and built into everything. It somehow, Maheshwara also pervades everything. We see the projection, we see Mitya. But fundamentally, we want to understand the Purusha pervades Maya, Ishwara, and Jagata. And we want to know where is this Purusha. It's easier to look for Ishwara as a mixture of the two, okay? Ishwara plus Prakriti, you know, is the world manifest. You know? When you have Purusha, and then you bring Maya, and then you produce Ishwara. So we have more, it's more easy for us it's more tangible to us to get in contact with Saguna Brahmana Ishvara, no? But Purusha, or consciousness, which is all pervading, all penetrating, and all permeating. So just imagine something that penetrates everything. Also, it's the substratum. We call it all pervasive, but it's the substrate. It's there. It's penetrating everything, let's say. Oh, okay. So where is this Purusha? Oh, it's all penetrating. It's all pervading. And is there a place it's not pervaded? No, even it pervades even in space. Huh? So in the manifest, you want to look for Purusha, but it's all pervading, all penetrating, all permeating. So there is no way we're gonna see or sense or recognize Purusha in that manner, you know, because of what? Because it's hide behind everything, even space, because it penetrates space. It's penetrating one. It's penetrating the five elements in all the compositions, configurations derived by the elements, grossifications of elements. So it's as if it's hiding, and it's not a stupid and absurd question. As is, why it's so difficult? It seems to be hiding. Oh yeah, it's a game of hide and seek and so on. Because somehow the Namarupas are covering it. Even the space, which is a sort of Namarupa, is covering it because Purusha is just in there. It's within everything, Everything is within consciousness. Consciousness is within everything, Both can be said. Therefore, the concept is of the indweller. The indweller, the resident within the body, mind, sense complex of the human jiva, is consciousness producing human consciousness. Of these two, one principle we find pervading everywhere because Panchabuddhas and Prakriti and the other combinations, river, mountains, I went to the extent to say even the space. In short, the entire universe, experience universe is Prakriti, and what is Purusha? Prakriti goes through change all the time, and this is I love this concept as well. This supreme power, this supreme intelligence, this spirit behind everything, within everything, this conscious existence, is there and can be looked for in the macrocosm and the micro within the atoms, So if we get matter, prakriti, and we start breaking, splitting it, we go to the extent of looking to God, the reality, or the truth. What is the fundamental substance of matter? You can do it in here, you can do it on the macro level. It's there, it's within, it is penetrating and permeating, it's behind everything in the macro and the micro, Macro and the micro. Sometimes the micro I call micro because it's in Portuguese. Prakriti is changing, and then the outer world, such as out there in the galaxies and so on, are changing. And within the atom, everything is changing as well. In the micro and macro, the body is experiencing change. We experience a changing body, a changing mind. That's why we experience things all the time, and we know it because we say, this I like, that I don't like. So the body is pleasure and pains, hunger, thirst. I am able to talk about what I do not experience, I cannot talk about. And the physical body is also experienced principle. And Krishna says that also is prakriti because it's subject to change. So it's saying that the physical body experiences the world in which we experience all pair opposites, pair of opposites. And then we say that we experience it through the mind, or the body-mind sense complex. And the very body-mind sense complex is change. The physical world is change. Yeah? Therefore, the experienced objective world in which the instrument body-mind is integral part is change. Anything that changes Prakriti. Therefore, the mind is Prakriti and the body is Prakriti. We have established before that consciousness is Nirvikara, is not subject to change. And then Prakriti is that which changes all the time. So we have understood that the body and the mind are changing all the time. Therefore, each is of the nature of Prakriti, inert matter/energies. It's quite something to talk about that, because when people are beginning to start Vedanta, you tell them that the mind is inert matter, is insentient. It's difficult for people to understand that subtlety, because there are two aspects to the mind. One is its structure, in which thoughts appear and this and that, but there is something in there which is illumining and revealing those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and cognitions, and that is reflected consciousness, which sometimes I like to refer as a subtle intellect on the experiential level. So the problem is that when we want to objectify everything to know what is Prakriti and what is Purusha, we do that through the mind. And then we say mind is Purusha and the objective world is Prakriti. But our mind is being also experienced by me, as we know. In fact, only I myself can experience my mind, can witness and perceive my mind. I am aware of all those emotions and thoughts and memories and cognitions. Everything happens within the mind, meaning to say subtle body. I know my knowledge, I know my ignorance. And if there is a blankness or emptiness of the mind, that is also known by me. The mind is also experienced and is subject to change, and therefore that is also Prakriti. So he's breaking it down to try to take us to Purusha. Where is this blessed Purusha? No? So experienced world is Prakriti, experienced body mind is Prakriti. Anything that is an object of experience is Prakriti. Where is the blessed Purusha? Swami again inquires. He is not even seen. Where is this Purusha? It is hide. It's a play of hide and seek. Therefore, we go on searching for this Purusha. Some people search outside in the macrocosm or in the field of, science. Whatever they search and find is an object of knowledge/experience. Therefore, they are going to know more of Prakriti. Suppose I look within the physical body. If I look there, I don't mean in the anatomy of the physical body, but anything in the body. But if you look, you see blood. No, if you look into the anatomy of a physical body, you see just chemicals, which are energies, which are byproducts of energies. It's all Prakriti. If I look within the mind, I see thoughts, emotions, cognitions, memories, impressions. So inside and outside, all I experience is Prakriti, matter/energies. Everything experienced is an object. Every object is Prakriti. Where is this blessed Purusha? And then, so I'm saying something which is a common conclusion by most everyone. So if it's not available anywhere to be experienced and know, it probably does not exist. Do not search for the Purusha. Do not believe that Purusha cannot be recognized and owned or realized, but know that Purusha cannot be known as an object of mithya, of experience and knowledge. Why? Because the Purusha appears to be hidden, but it's not completely hidden. It's just penetrating, permeating, pervading everything, but somehow there is a leak in the Ishvara system. And it's very, very counterintuitive, this leakage, because this leakage is such that Purusha leaks, producing Aham. So where are you going to find this Purusha? It's there shining in the human subtle body, in the human intellect as Aham, as beingness, as conscious, human consciousness, human beingness. Fundamentally, Purusha. Mark, I'm going to repeat something here that was just said, because Swami keeps bringing, where is this Purusha? Where is this Purusha? Everywhere you're trying to see Purusha is Prakriti and so on, in the mind, in the body, da, 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 da. And then we come to the conclusion that Prakriti, although it's everywhere, permeating everything, within everything and so on, it's not recognizable because it's totally hidden by the superimposition of everything, including space. And then if it's not available, it means it does not exist. Some people would say, like scientists tend to come to that conclusion. And then it was said that although it's not really available, it somehow there is a leakage or leakage in the Ishvara system, in the superimposition governed by Ishvara's laws and principles, by which this Purusha leaks. Okay? And the leakage is in the human intellect, it leaks as Aham. So this is the leakage, and Sagada Maharaj used to say that Aham is the advertisement of the spirit, the divine. When you say, I am, I exist, it's just the leakage I was referring to in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem begins when we start putting adjectives after the I am. That's when the problems begin. If we just left it at the I am, it wouldn't be a problem. But we keep putting all these additions and adjectives and all sorts of constructs at the end of it.
That is unavoidable now, because the I am comes. I tend to say that at the early age of I don't know, say 6, 7, 8 years old, the ego begins crystallized because the I am has an impulse to define itself. Because just imagine any living creature now with a conscious mind and say, oh, I am, I exist, and I'm conscious of my existence. There is this impulse for knowing things when you are in this duality. And immediately this aham, this existence, wants to find a definition to itself. And nobody goes to the schools to learn the Upanishads at early age, because if they would go, the Upanishads would say, okay, this aham, although you need to keep a certain knowledge of your body mind sense complex to operate in the world, it's not what you really are. What you are is Satchitananda Brahman, you was conscious existence. Okay. So, and then it's everybody falls for the definition of oneself as the body, and then the mind later on. I am the body, I am the mind. And the process of Vedanta is very difficult because this misidentification, or erroneous identification, goes for many lifetimes, and then to re-examine it and correct that definition of oneself from I am the body mind to I am of the nature of conscious existence, it's not so simple, you know. Old habit, uh, but it's
Yeah.
possible to reverse or to change, to shift our sense, the identification from the body mind to consciousness. So Swami is bringing the logic here to a certain point. Uh, do not search for the Purusha because the Purusha is the experiencer I. So the Aham, this I, this conscious being that we are, you know, I am, and I know that I'm conscious that I am. This is Purusha. It's the most simple thing. This is truth. This is God reflecting the human mind as Aham, that needs to say, Aham, I am of the nature of God, I'm the nature of consciousness, I'm the nature of the nature of Brahman. So where I'm going to find this Purusha? You find in the I that we repeat every moment, I am, I exist. Therefore, Zagadat used to say, you know, stop at I am, I exist. Hold on to the I am, I exist thought feeling, you know, and don't allow it to associate and to draw some conclusions about its, you know, nature and identity as the basic stop, and that requires a lot of meditation, stopping the aham before the aham becomes a man or a woman, and many other, you know, properties, definitions. So it's intriguing me lately this because in terms of yoga, every one of these wise teachers we know about, which includes Ramana and Nisargadatta, you know, they point to the fact that you have to go to do this work holding on to I and questioning the nature of this I, you know, either say I am, I am, I am, until this I am somehow disappears, the sense of doership and ownership, and you know, and or you just question who am I until you understand that the I was a fiction, it was just an illusion, a collection of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and memories. So either way, meditation can help us to go through that space in which the mind becomes so empty that the very I, the ahankara, start losing its substance in the light of this effort. You know, it's very mysterious because consciousness is non-dual, so appears as the mind. The mind cannot really split in two, the seer and the seen, you know. So, but there is consciousness. Consciousness in the mind is self-reflective. It is self-conscious, and then somehow there is a reflection from original consciousness that can see the the centers or the functions of those centers of the mind that allows a certain ability to witness the I, and the I is going to become less and less dense, gross, and is going to become more and more subtle. And this subtle ahamkara can deceive as well because it's so subtle, you know. But the idea is that if you do these meditations, it comes a point that the ahankara somehow it accepts that he is not the doer, no, he's not the thinker, he does not own anything, but yet it has a certain role and responsibility in this process of purifying the I until the I merge, so to speak, into its true nature as limitless conscious existence. So the basic subject I is the Purusha, the basic, the true nature of the subject conscious witnessing. I is the basic conscious principle because I, the experiencer, therefore, the I, the experience, is conscious or inert. This is a very, very subtle question. The I, the experience, is conscious or inert. I, the experience, am conscious or inert. An experience has to be necessarily a conscious, sentient principle only. And this experiencer, conscious, sentient entity is the reflection of consciousness upon the subtle body. Therefore, we can say that there is consciousness, reflect consciousness permeating the ego, revealing the ego to itself as just an alteration upon this reflection. This is all very subtle. It takes us all the way to those concepts of who is getting self-knowledge and moksha, because the ego, the ahamkara, the I, the impostor, the one who has somehow taken appropriation and ownership of everything, every function of its subtle body, including its actions, thoughts, memories, and so on. This I, this I will never get self-recognition and self-knowledge because the I is the ahamkara. The ahamkara is the obstacle because it's a sense of I am the doer, the thinker, the actor. I'm just doing everything here and I have a certain power and control. So the sense of doership and ownership. So the I, the ahamkara, can never really get this self-recognition and dissolution because the ahamkara is going to resist it because it wants to preserve its existence. Consciousness has no problem with the superimposition of Maya, so consciousness has no interest to interfere with Maya's deal or business of making these projections, So who is becoming conscious? Who is become self-knowledge, is getting self-knowledge? Who is becoming jnani or enlightened or howsoever we put it? So it's a big question. It's a very subtle question. And it's almost as if consciousness itself is going to become conscious of its true nature, even under the spell of body-mind sense complex, which is under the spell of illusion. I am the ahamkara. So its consciousness realizes and recognizes its true nature through the pure ahamkara, jivatma. So it's almost as if consciousness, because we know this concept, consciousness starts pulling us in this process, pulling ahamkara to itself and say, hey, take it easy, come. Don't hold on to your experience as a wave, or don't hold on to your experience as a river coming down the mountains, come back to the ocean. Come back to the ocean in both sense, You are not a river, you're the ocean. You're not a wave, you're the ocean, And the resistance coming from the river and the ocean, it's understandable, but only if they don't have the understanding that to own its true nature is the only way to live full, whole, and complete. and satisfied experience as manifest in matter. So therefore, this is a big question, very profound. The experience, I am conscious. Yes, I am the conscious Brahman. I reflect upon consciousness, producing the human consciousness, and the true nature of this reflect consciousness is Aikya with original consciousness. Therefore, I can say that Tattvamasi, the Atma of this reflect consciousness, the being, the consciousness of this reflection being, is of the same nature of Paramatma, which is original, limitless, non-dual consciousness. And we have the analogy of the sun reflect upon the moon, producing the light, lunar light in the night, in a full moon, which is of the same nature of original light coming from the sun. That's analogy. It's the analogies in Vedanta. They are the key for everything because you can never address or search for or trace to consciousness, as something, defined by named forms and attributes. Okay. So you need to use these analogies which refer to names, forms, and attributes that makes a parallel to understand. The same way the wave in the ocean is not going to lose anything by becoming the ocean. The same way the ahamkara, which is reflect consciousness, is not going to lose anything from becoming Brahman's limitless consciousness, the experience, I am conscious. I'm a sentient principle witnessing consciousness. I am an experiencing entity, and as an experienced entity, I can say I am the same nature of original consciousness, which is not an experiencing entity. My true nature is not an experienced entity, but reflect upon this experiencing mechanism or instrument. It produces Brahman manifests and owned by its reflection upon this instrument of knowledge experience. Therefore, the individual may be able to say, yes, I am of the nature of Satchitananda conscious existence. And I have the status of experiencing entity, and I am sentient. I have this sentience and I own it. I don't know if it's to my original true nature as original consciousness, the only source of sentience. I witness the body, I witness the mind, how to look that. Do not ask, the moment you see, it will become an object, and again, it will be within the body-mind. So you can never find Purusha in that way, because Purusha is the seer and will never be seen. That which is ever the subject of experience and never an object of knowledge experience is Purusha. Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Purusha, I am the consciousness, I am the spirit, I am the only source of consciousness and existence. And as an instrument, Jivatma, I experience the world, and I can say, this conscious reflected here is of the nature of Brahman. Therefore, I can say, Aham Brahmasmi. No, but Brahman is not an experienced entity. Yes, okay, that's totally okay. I understood that, and I have no problem. I'm done with being an experienced entity because it's all about experience, pleasure, and pain. Okay, I want to own my true nature and rest in the ocean as the ocean. Purusha is the I, the very subject which is so appearing as enclosed in everything. So this Purusha appears as the indweller, producing reflect consciousness or sentience and animation to certain configurations, certain objects such as jivas, no? Jivas from the human realm, animal, and vegetal. It appears as enclosed the same way we know the analogy of this space appears to be enclosed within every clay pot, but it appears to be enclosed, but it penetrates, permeates, and pervades everything. Everything is within it, and it appears to be within everything. How so? Because it somehow it lends existence and lends conscious existence to the inert beings and the sentient beings. Therefore, Krishna says Purusha is Bhokta, means what? Here, Bhokta, the witness, the Sak Chaitanya. So it's not an experiencing entity, okay? But is the Bhokta, means the witnessing Sak Chaitanya, witnessing conscious principle. Is the subject experiencer principle. The experience of what? Of Purusha. But I heard that Purusha is not an experienced entity. It is not without a body, mind, sense instrument. In association with body, mind, sense instrument, Purusha experience the mind and the body and the world, through this instrument. If Purusha is the only experience, the only seer, is the only drik, everything else a driksha, who will experience this Purusha? What is the other, what is exists other than Purusha? Only Prakrit. Prakrit is inert, insentient, will never be able to experience Purusha. Purusha can be known and experienced only by itself. And that takes us to something that I reflect upon sometimes, which is there is an experiential element in self-recognition. It's not an experience in the sense that you experience something defined by its attributes, but you experience in consciousness without which I don't experience anything in the world which is defined by its attributes. We need to experience consciousness before we experience the Prakrit world. I experience consciousness not as the Prakrit within the Prakrit world. I experience consciousness as aham. Okay? There is an elemental experiencing element in self-recognition because you must experience consciousness before you experience the world of Prakriti. And this is so important because somehow I start understanding the self when I start getting this feeling, sense, experience. I'm experiencing somehow consciousness here. I'm experiencing consciousness. Not I did not have no Vedanta. I did not have all this logic to clarify, but there is a sense of a peace, of resolution and purification, and of when you start perceiving this consciousness, this reflect consciousness, that you start seeing it as reflect consciousness, not as the thoughts, feelings, and emotions superimposed upon it. You understand what I'm going to? Prakriti means the body mind sense complex, and not only the body mind sense complex, as well as all the conditions of the body mind. Nobody is going to experience Purusha because Purusha is the ultimate experience and knower. So Prakriti will never be able to experience and know Purusha. Purusha knows itself by itself, in itself. Prakriti means the body-mind sense complex, and not only the body-mind complex, as well as all the conditions of the body-mind complex. So, and then things become very, very complex because even thoughts, feelings, cognitions, concepts, emotions, pleasures, such as pleasures, pain, sufferings, everything on the physical body as one's physical pain and illness, and also mental sicknesses such as depression and other things. So everything is subtle prakriti manifest, in the mind, in the subtle body, more specific. Okay. The conditions of this subtle body is prakriti as well, such as favorable health conditions and pleasure and pains. All of that belongs to prakriti. My ragadvesha, my desires, all the other emotions, krodha, lobha, moha, everything are properties of subtle prakriti, operating on the subtle body. None of these is a property of Purusha, because Purusha is propertyless, attributeless. Everything is Prakriti. Everything we perceive, we touch, we feel, or observe, we witness, everything is Prakriti in the subtle, inner, so to speak, level of the mind or the outer. And that's why Swami says, like, this is very important law in Vedanta. All the observed properties of Prakriti belongs only to the observed objects, not to Purusha or consciousness or the witnessing conscious principle. The Jivatma, once the Jivatma understands these teachings and understands that this reflection of consciousness operating in the subtle body is of the nature of Purusha, and then it has to be really sure about that. Anything that I experience in this world do not belong to me. None of these properties derived from the elements, they belong to me. Okay. They belong to the mind. Yes, we have seen the subtle body is Prakriti. If I observe the mind is Prakriti, therefore it's changing. But the reflect consciousness in its true, pure nature, and Sagadati used to say pure consciousness as pure reflect consciousness, it creates some confusion, but it had a profound point in there, So everything else belongs to Prakriti. All the observed properties in this objective, physical, and subtle dimensions, of the human experience, everything belongs to Prakriti. All the properties belong to the object. All the observed properties can belong only to observed objects, which are configurations of Prakriti. No property belongs to I, Purusha, I, pure consciousness. And here we can say the reflect consciousness can get to that understanding and say, yes, even this aham is of nature of Brahman. Okay, aham Brahmasmi. Because in the purity of this reflection, I can recognize that there is something that does not change, does not move, is the experience reflecting, experience is experiencing conscious entity that witnessing the properties of this world, knowing that none of that belongs to me. They may belong to the subtle body, to the physical body, and to the world perceived through the body, mind, sense complex. Therefore, the observed properties can never belong to me, the subject experiencing pure reflection of consciousness. Therefore, the observer is always property-less or property-free. There is no really line separating this reflect consciousness as the aham from original consciousness as we are understanding here. You understand? This I am is propertyless in my refined true nature to the extent that I make this distinction between my subtle body, which is made of Prakriti, and the reflection of consciousness upon this subtle body. I say this reflection, this aham, is so pure now because the subtle body was purified that it does not own the properties which belong to the mind and to the physical world. It says, I am the free, reflect consciousness, witnessing everything, and only then this reflect consciousness can say, I am of the nature of unchanging, propertyless Brahman. All properties, attributes belong to Prakriti only. And therefore Krishna says, Purusha, that big sentence there, in the created world, Prakriti is available as objects of knowledge and experience. Purush is available only as the subject conscious principle. In the created world, Prakriti is available as the object. Purusha is available as the subject. So where is this blessed Purusha? It's shining on the mind, on the intellect of every human jiva in a way that he can be recognized. It shines in the mind of my chicken, but they will never get it. But in the human creatures, we have the potential to understand where this Purusha is everywhere, but can be recognized when it shines as the same way electricity can only be recognized when we turn on the light, for example. Okay, this is a beautiful subject. I knew that it was going to be a source of good satsang, and we carry on this Friday. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste.
Thank you, Orlando. Really beautiful class.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
enjoyed it as well. Meet soon. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
good thing, Many thanks.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye now.